Welcome to the All-Star Planning Podcast. My name is Kelsey, and this is the place where I talk all things teacher lesson plans. Today, I am talking about why your lesson order matters. And you're like, well, duh, of course it does. But here's the thing. When you actually sit and look at the order in which you teach your lessons, you may find that you weren't as purposeful as you thought. So, this is what happened to me. If it happened to me, it must have happened to somebody else, right? So I specifically want to talk about why your lesson order matters and why it's important to be very thoughtful in the things that you teach first, second, third, fourth, etc. So here's the deal. Your lesson order should provide flow, meaning that the skills that your kids are learning are building on each other, and the better you are at providing a flow of your lessons, the stronger your students will be, the less time you will have to spend reteaching, and just overall quality of teaching and learning will skyrocket. So when you have this flow, everything becomes streamlined, and the reason for that is because your kids can very easily recall the things that they learned in a short time period than they could in a long time period. So for me, what I tried to do when I first started teaching was just copy what I learned as a student teacher, and I found that it didn't work for me, for my students, for my brain, for everything. So when I changed it, I was very thoughtful as to how my lessons were going to be sequenced. And in doing that, what happened was I created a first semester that was based on microchemistry and a second semester based on macrochemistry. So for those of you who don't know what that means, basically what happens is that my first semester, they are learning all about the atom, how it's built, how it looks in a teeny tiny version, and then we take that and we expand it and we look outwards as to how groups of atoms interact with each other. So if you were teaching math, maybe you would do your arithmetic and then spread that out to word problems. I think this is the closest analogy I could get to what I do in chemistry for people who teach other subjects. In English, I would imagine you would do like spelling, vocabulary, grammar, and then expand it out to works of literature, which I know isn't the best way to do it with everything. I know you kind of like teach those things as you go in other subjects, but for me with chemistry, it just seemed to work better that way. It's just what happened when I sat down and I really thought about the flow. It kind of came out that I had a theme to my semesters, and it just worked better. So with that streamline, my kids were learning better because they were only being asked to recall things from a short period of time. And then because my entire semester had a singular theme, the enduring understandings were pretty much the same, or the big ideas were pretty much the same, where the kids were kind of just being bombarded with the same ideas over and over and over. It's all about the electrons. It really firmed up those big ideas that the kids need to learn in a chemistry course. So, I'm now relying on short-term memory, and then bombarding them with these same things every other day turned short-term memory into long-term memory kind of by accident. So then what happens is that the kids can more easily see the connections when you have a thoughtful flow to your lessons. And this is really life-changing, because when your kids can see the flow, they understand why they are learning the things that they're learning, and they're more open to learning them. Doesn't that sound crazy? You can remember sitting in some class, I don't know what it is for you, for me it was math, you'd be able to follow the teacher doing it, and then as soon as you got home, you broke down, maybe into tears, maybe in anger, and said, I can't do this, this is so frustrating, why am I doing this? That's the question, why am I doing this? When you have a good flow, the kids can see why they are learning X, Y, or Z. It's because it's going to contribute to stuff later. It relates to stuff they already learned. Next, when you have good flow, you actually save time. I don't think you're going to believe me when I tell you this. I really don't think that you will, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Prior to the coronavirus closure of schools, I had 6 weeks at the end of my school year that were open for final exam review. 6 entire weeks. With just one day missing for Memorial Day, everything else was a full school day. I was going to see the kids. I was on a schedule where I would see them every single day. 6 entire weeks. And that is all because I planned well. The year prior, I had 3 weeks. So just in scheduling and streamlining and mushing together lessons and pulling out things that didn't really make sense, taking small lessons and kind of pushing them into one day, or taking smaller ideas and incorporating them into bigger ideas. You know what I mean. I turned 3 weeks of review into 6 weeks of review. That's unheard of. That is unheard of. And I'm telling you that it's only true because of this method. If you are interested in planning your school year so that you have a bunch of extra time at the end for final exam review or whatever it may be, you can sign up for the free masterclass. It's all about the 5 steps of the All-Star Planning Method. You can find that at plan.kelseyreeby.com. I will link it in the show notes. If you are watching this podcast on YouTube, I have linked it in the video description box. Otherwise, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you don't miss anything. And I will see you next week. Happy planning.